This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. You know, we are all walking through a maze of life. And from the first day that we're born until that last breath we take, our journey can be exciting, but we have to be mindful of where we're going. And just like my guest today, Lorianne, Lorianne, I can almost bet when you were growing up, the title of coach probably related to the baseball coach, the football coach. It didn't talk about people coaching others to get through life situations.
Yeah.
It says you're a take action strategist. And I love that because so many of us, we just sit back, we wait for everybody else to take action. You're an author, you're a speaker, you're a radio host. So tell me, when you were a little girl, is this where you thought you were going to be today?
Oh gosh, no. I thought I was going to be a singer on Broadway, a performer on Broadway. That's what I wanted to do, sing and dance and act and do all that. That's what I wanted to do. God, universe, source told me something different.
So what
So
made
I
you
still
think,
sing, don't get me wrong, but not on Broadway.
so what made you think that you wanted to be on Broadway? Because obviously there was something in that energy that probably took you to where you are today.
Yeah, so it was about reaching out and touching other people in a positive way. This was more of an entertaining way. And I've been singing since knee high to a grasshopper, as my parents used to say, right? And both of my parents were musicians. They were teachers. My dad was the superintendent of schools. So, I was in that environment, and it was an exciting time to be in that environment. But life took me in a different direction. So I am a Pisces, a true Pisces. So I have my artistic side, my creative side, and then I have my business side. And so when I'm in my business head, I'm not always very creative. But when I'm in my creative head, I'm not really business savvy, right? So I needed to learn that about myself. And then I had to take the direction life was navigating me to. So I didn't have to, but that's what you're going to end up doing. It's almost like the Waze app. You know how they have 3 different ways you can go someplace?
Right.
I guess I decided to take the longest route possible to get where I am right now, but that's okay because I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I always was. Once I recognized that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to do, I realized when I looked back at my life, all the experiences that I had gave me all the tools today to do what I was doing today.
You know, I love how you say you are where you're supposed to be. And I hope our listeners hear that because even if you feel like you're at the bottom of the barrel today, maybe that's where you're supposed to be so that you can start climbing out. You don't feel that today, but tomorrow, as you've maybe inched up a little bit, you're going to say, wow, that's why I was down there yesterday.
Yeah, so let's look at it from a different lens. It feels like you're at the bottom of the barrel. You've hit the lowest low possibility. You can only go up from there. So there's a positive thing. Changing your lens and looking at maybe universe, God, source, however you refer to your higher power, has opened up an opportunity for you to see all the possibilities of what you could be. So if we look at that and take it from contrast to something positive and understand this, in order to know what we want, we need to understand what we don't want. So it starts from the don't wants. That's how we narrow things down. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be that. I don't want to experience this. So what does that say? This is what I do want to do. I do want to be a coach. I do want to help other people. I do want to do whatever it is that you want to do. So if we look at it with a different lens, it looks differently and it feels differently and it puts you in a different vibration, which opens you up to accept what is being sent to you. And a lot of times, and I know I did, you miss the whispers and the nudges that God, source, universe is giving us. And sometimes they're billboards. They're literally billboards that say a word that you're like, oh, there's confirmation. Oh, this is saying do it. Oh, I had things, I literally had a billboard that said coach. That's all it said on it. Now, why would anybody pay to do a billboard like that just said coach? At the end, it didn't matter the why. It mattered. It was there and my head was lifted and I saw it and it was a confirmation that I was in the right direction.
I love that because, you know, I kept thinking many, many years ago that I was unhappy because everybody around me wanted me to be something that I didn't think I was. And I was fighting it. It would be like, well, I want to be that person, but I don't know how. And at my last corporate job, one of our managers on Friday would go around the room and say, what is the one thing that you like about a movie or music or whatever it was? And they'd get to me and I would just say, this is foolish. I just want to go back and do my work. And I didn't understand what I was doing at the time until I realized, wait a second, why am I so negative? I thought I was being positive. I want to go do my work. But no, I wasn't. I was being negative because I was closing myself off. I didn't know my favorite song. I didn't know my favorite movie, but everybody else around me did.
You didn't know what you wanted. But when was the
Exactly.
last time, honestly, Nancy, when was the last time somebody asked you what you wanted? I'm sorry, Karen. I don't know why I called you Nancy. Maybe you were
That's okay.
Nancy in past life or something. I don't know. But when was the last time somebody actually asked you what you wanted? They usually tell you what they want, but we're very rarely asked that. And we don't ask ourselves, what do we really want?
Right.
So I love that story that you're telling, is that, you were trying to do, you thought you were doing the right thing, but you weren't listening and taking those nudges and those whispers that you were getting from people who surround you, situations that surround you. It happens in the weird way. Have you ever gotten in your car, Karen, and presuming you have one, and you had the radio on, and the words to the song kind of answer a question you've been asking yourself all day?
Absolutely.
That's a whisper. That's a nudge. That's what I'm talking about.
So I know when I was a little girl, I never thought I'd be sitting here doing what I'm doing today. I know when I was graduating high school, what I wanted to do was be on network TV. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something in the newsroom. But I wasn't a news person, but I liked listening to, newscasters telling me what was happening in the world. And I remember telling my parents as I went to college, that's what I'm going to major in. And my father said, oh no, get back in the car. Because if that's what you're going to major in, you're not going. And I thought, well, that's not fair. But I look back now and I understand why he said that. It was 1968. Women were not really in the media. He saw his money being wasted. He wanted me to go get that teaching degree because that's what he wanted me to be.
Well, that and the fact that he was projecting his concerns and fears, albeit in a loving way, and
Yeah.
he thought he was doing the right thing. But it was really his fears. It was his fear that you wouldn't have a stable job. It was his fear that you would be rejected. He was actually protecting you, but in doing so, he was also putting limiting beliefs on you. And my father did the same thing. He said to me, and my father, big thinker, big visionary. I mean, I adore the ground he walks on. My first love, of course, our fathers, right? So, but what he did was he wanted to make sure I was safe. So he had me go to school, to college for business. So of course I got my business administration and economics degree and blah, 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 blah. But I really wanted to be a singer on Broadway. That wasn't the trajectory that was going to be my, where I ended up.
Sure.
What I ended up doing is I ended up seeing that industry is hard, in such a destructive way that it would have crushed me because of who I am. That resiliency, although I'm very resilient, that was a part of me that I was sharing, that if it got crushed, would have crushed all of my creativity. So for me, it wasn't actually, looking back, it wasn't actually the best thing for me to do. I was working in New York City. I was a backup singer back in the day, and now I'm aging myself. Don't do math. I was back in the day. I was a backup singer in studio. So we would sit there in this little room and we would read books or whatever, and they would call us in if our voice was the one that the artist wanted,
Sure.
and they'd give us music, you'd sing the line, and then they'd send you back to the room. Well, when I was there, I lost all track of time because I was in my zone of genius. When we go, oh my gosh, where'd the time go? That means we're in our happy place. We're in our zone of genius. We're doing what we're meant to do, right? So I'm getting goosebumps from head to toe right now, right? And I used to sneak out of that room and go into the engineer's room to figure out what does that board do and how do you do. And I asked the engineer, like drove him nuts. What does that do? What does that do? And they're like, stop asking questions. And I was just like, I can't help myself. I want to know. But I learned through asking those questions and just being surrounded in what I thought was the best job in the world. Well, while I was there, I got this beautiful offer from a vice president, and he said, Lorianne, you have a great voice, best thing you can hear, right? You want to be a Broadway singer, blah, blah, blah. He says, I want to offer you a contract. Oh my gosh, I was over the moon. I was 19 years old. And he invited me up to his office, and he was talking, and then he made some inappropriate advances. And I was like, no, this is not, no, I don't want that. And he, all of a sudden, he switched on a dime on me, which just confused my brain because our brains don't work this way, right? Unless you have exposure to it. And I never had. He switched on a dime, and I suddenly became the most untalented. I would be unsuccessful. He said, you might as well get out of the business now, blah, blah, blah. Well, for 10 years, those words echoed, and I allowed them to have real estate in my brain about what he thought I was, because he didn't get what he wanted. But the reality is I took away my own voice for 10 years until somewhere along the line, I'm sure you've heard the expression, there's a reason, a season, and a lifetime that people come in. Well, there was a reason. This one girl sat next to me in a meeting, and she just turned to me out of the blue. She doesn't know me from Adam. And she goes, why do you take your voice away from yourself? Now, I think she meant talking voice. I heard singing voice, right? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she goes, just asking the question. And I turned away to think about it. And when I turned back, she was gone. Now, that sounds really crazy that this happened, but it happened. And I thought at that moment that I would never again allow someone else to take away my voice. And I would not allow anybody else to take away anybody else's voice. And I became an advocate. Well, an advocate turned into a mentor, which turned into like a muse for the people I was working with and working for. I was that person who was always that cheerleader. Does it sound familiar to a coach?
Yes,
I was the
absolutely.
person who was like, why aren't you writing that book? If that's what you want to do, follow your passion. I was that person who put together the Stars Awards to lift high school kids up. It was like the Tony Awards for high school kids, to lift them up and give them the attention they needed while giving them scholarships that were donated. So I became that person over time. Did I think of that when I was a young little girl running in the backyard in my hills, playing, Native American, because I am Native American? I was like, because I would find the arrowheads in the woods and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah. And I was always a princess, of course. I'm sparkly girl, right? When I have grandchildren, and I will have grandchildren, when I have grandchildren, I'm going to be called Grandma. That's how sparkly I like stuff, right? But did I ever think that's where I would end up? No. Matter of fact, I left a 6-figure job because I wasn't feeling valued. I wasn't feeling seen and heard. I'm like, why am I here? I got up and left one day and said, thank you for the opportunity, left my access card and left, not having another job. Why? I wasn't being fulfilled, and I was actually getting sick. And so as a result, as I drove away, I was waiting for the nervous breakdown or the other shoe to drop. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have 2 kids. I'm a single mom. I have a house to hold over my head, and I just left a 6-figure job. What are you thinking? And you know what happened, Karen, on that ride down the Long Island Expressway? This weight came off of my shoulders. I never had the nervous breakdown. I never had that other shoe, other boot to drop. I actually saw a vision of what my life could be, and I followed that vision. And I was given that direction because I was paying attention to those nudges and those whispers. Prior, I had swiped them away and ignored them to the point where I felt like I got run over by a truck and then backed up over again. That's how bad everything needed to get. And I blew my whole life up in order to really start being awake and seeing those nudges and those whispers and taking the lead, because they're always there to guide us, because all our success codes are right here, Karen. They're right inside us when we're born. We just have to look inside, and I wasn't doing that.
It's interesting, and I love doing this show because when I meet people like you, it's like, well, I was down a very similar path. Okay. Wasn't making six figures, but I was the breadwinner in our house. I excelled at what I was doing. My husband never looked at it like, oh my God, if you lose your job, we're going to be short. We were both going out and doing, and I loved my job, but the culture was
Yeah.
killing me to the point that I'd come home from work every day in tears. And my husband didn't see the tears. He just heard the frustration, and his comment was, that happens in the workplace. And I'd be going, but it shouldn't be. I love my students. I love the people that, I'm working with, but not the people I'm working for.
Yes.
And I got so sick one day, I went into HR and I said something, and they said, you should take some medical leave. And at first it was like, no, 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 let's just get this fixed. It was, no, take medical leave. And I did, because I thought, you know what? They're offering it to me. I'm going to take it. I'm going to recoup and figure things out. And I wasn't on medical leave 2 days, and I got a letter that said, you abandoned your job. You are no longer employed here. And it depressed me, but I got to get out of this depression. So you depress me, but you know what? I'm going to go find that answer. And the next day I made a doctor appointment and I said, this is what happened. I can't stay here. This doctor was absolutely wonderful. Not a psychiatrist, not a psychologist, a GP. And he said, what is it you want to do with your life, Karen? And it just all came out.
Yeah.
He said, then go do it. And my first comment was, but I'm not sure we can afford it. He said, have a conversation with your husband. And I did. And my husband said, hey, we're just going to have to do things differently.
So I heard something very specific there, and I want to point it out to your listeners. Very specific. He was telling you, focus on the what, not the how.
Exactly.
Focus on the what. When we set goals, this is the time of year we all set goals for 2024, right? Or for whatever year we're going into, we set goals. Focus on the how, the what, not the how is it going to be done? How am I going to accomplish? Focus on the what. The how will come. Our brains solve that. Our hearts tell us the how. I mean, the what. Our hearts tell us what we want to be, what we want to do. That intuition going into inside us is here in the heart center, right? And then the how will follow. Our brain figures it out. As soon as we start saying it out loud, writing it on a piece of paper. That's why USA Today says 1,100% more probability of you being successful when you write down your goals and what you want, and be clear, be very specific, very, very specific. It's really important. Let me tell you a story. I just recently heard this, and I know it's been around a long time, but I just recently heard it and I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. So there's a Harvard study. So Harvard for I think 30 some odd years, they did this study, and they went into this one teacher, and they would do this with different professors. And they would say to them, you have two very special people in your class, and they are like off the chart smart. But I don't want you treating them separately. I don't want you giving them extra work. I don't want you having different work products for them or expectations for them. I just want you to know that they are really, really off the chart smart. And we're going to actually make sure that you don't play favoritism or do anything like that. We're going to actually put a video in your room so we can make sure that that doesn't happen. But we really wanted to share this with you. So at the end of the year, that same teacher came back to them and went, oh my God, you were so right. These two are incredible. They're off the chart smart. And the information that came back to the teacher might be shocking, but they said to the teacher, well, here's the thing. They weren't off the charts according to the tests and things like that. But by telling you that, you had that expectation. With that vibrational expectation of those two people, you elevated their ability of what they even thought they could do. And that's, as a teacher, what we have the ability to do. And we're all teachers. We're all modeling. So by elevating her expectations, it elevated their expectations. In my language, what my father used to say is, raise the bar, Lorianne. Why is the bar so low? Raise the bar. I would say, he goes, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it changed every day when I was little. I was like, I want to be a nurse. He's like, why not a doctor? Raise the bar, Lorianne. And he goes, what do you want to be, Lorianne? I want to be a senator. Why not president? Raise the bar, Lorianne. So that's the same thing. If we raise the bar on each other, if we raise our expectations on ourselves and say, yes, why not? The possibilities open up. And I love that story because it's a true story. And I love that story because just think of the opposite. What happens with the opposite when people lower the bar on us, when people
Oh,
don't have that expectation, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
That story is interesting because when my youngest son turned 6, he was diagnosed being on the autism spectrum. And I always say he was this normal growing child. And one day we get a diagnosis and everybody looks at him differently. And
Label.
he had a wonderful neurologist who said to us, stop listening to people. And I said, but the school's treating him like he's got this horrible disability. He said, let your son do what he wants to do. Well, that was difficult because the school sort of contributed. But in the last 10 years, he's now in his early 30s, he broke away from the mold. One day he threw his medication away because he kept saying, this does nothing for me other than make me feel odd. He realized where his deficiencies were, but he saw all the things that he could do.
Yes.
And he kept telling people, this is what I'm going to do. And, I had family members who would say to me, Karen, let him talk. And I'd say, I'm letting him talk because one day you're going to see it. And he's doing it now. And he's not satisfied where he is. He's just keeps going and going. I was visiting him over the holidays and he had me come to his office. Not one person, but everyone in the office told me something special that he does. And I just that's because he's not going to stop.
Yes, because he raised his own bar. You raised the bar for him instead of saying, oh, this is the expectation. It's going to land right here and you're going to stay right here. That's called pigeonholing. And that's not okay. I'm not okay with that for me. I don't like it when I see other people. And that's why I'm a coach, because I want you to take action and understand 92% of us don't take action. We think about it, we dream about it, but we never take those steps. That's what I help you do. I help those other 8%. And I want you to be in the 8%. I want you to be in the 8%. I want to move that percentage higher, quite frankly. And that's what my personal goal is, to move that percentage way, way, way higher. What you were saying really resonates with me. I have an older sister. She was diagnosed as, and at the time, this is how they diagnosed her, mentally retarded, which is now on the low end of the spectrum, as they say now, right? And the same thing, my mom would say, go make the beds. And we shared a room and go make the beds. And I was like, well, why isn't she making, and I was younger. I'm like, why isn't she making a bed? Oh, Lorianne, she can't do that. And I was like, yeah, heck, she can't. I'm going to teach her how to do it. And sure enough, because in my mind, she could, and she was gonna, I taught her how to do it. Did it take time? Yes. Was it perfect? No. But did she get it? Yes. And did she actually end up making it really well? Yes. And I continue to raise the bar, Lorianne. Right. So that was the lesson I was taught as a little girl, raise the bar. And when I did, my sister stepped up to it. Another quick story is I learned how to sew. My mom taught me how to sew when I was young. And I've got my first house and I was excited and I wanted to make these curtains. And mom went, okay, you're good. And she was down in South Carolina. I was up in New York. So I had to do everything by phone. This is before Zoom and stuff like that.
Right.
That would have been so much more helpful, I got to tell you. But anytime, she goes, go get a pattern and then, let me know if you have any problems. I'm like, okay. So I went, I got a pattern. I found the one that I liked and I started doing it. And every once in a while I get some really major hiccups and I call up mom, they're asking me to do blah, blah. I don't know what that even means. And so she would explain it and I would go, oh, okay. There were no YouTube videos or anything there for you to look it up, right? There was mom. So she would walk me through. At the end, I sent her pictures of it. it. I was so proud of it. She goes, oh my gosh, you did such a great job. I went, thank you. I really appreciate it. And she goes, but I have a question for you. And I was like, yeah. She goes, why'd you pick the hardest pattern? And I was like, what now? She said, so there's easy sew and then there's Vogue. Vogue was the hardest, most advanced patterns that you could sew. Why did you pick that one? I was like, well, I like the design. But I was able to do it because I didn't know that it was the hardest. Now, do you think my mindset would have been different if I was like, well, this is the hardest and I'm not doing it? Would I probably have tossed in the towel? Probably. But because I didn't know that and she didn't point it out, smart woman. I mean, she was incredible, incredible human. She didn't point it out to me till after the fact to get me to recognize the fact. And again, these are all things I learned along my journey that I get to share with my clients, is that if you raise your own bar, if you don't think about how difficult something is, it's going to be a challenge. If it's not challenging, it's not fun. You're not growing. I say I'm more comfortable being uncomfortable than I am being comfortable now, because I know when I'm uncomfortable, I'm growing and I'm learning. When I'm comfortable, I'm becoming in a comfy couch, and I don't want to do that, because then what happens? We get stagnant.
Exactly.
So we're more comfortable being uncomfortable. So get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I have a little thing that I do, and I learned it from my coach, Jack Canfield. And if you take your hands and you put them together like this in front of you, just clasp your hands together and notice which thumb is over what thumb. Then I want you to take your hands, separate them, and I want you to shift them and change your hands so that the other thumb is over. So now it feels different. Doesn't feel as comfortable, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you're going to sit there and you're going to feel really uncomfortable for a while. But after a while, if you put your hands in your lap, give it a minute or two, suddenly it's not as uncomfortable. It's still not as comfortable as when we did it the first way, right? Because we habitually do it this way. But you know what? I could grow to like it this way. So now I'm ambidextrous in this because each way feels comfortable, because I've spent so much time feeling uncomfortable and going, all right, I'm going to invite this in. So I challenge you to invite a little discomfort in, because that means you're growing. And I want you to start recognizing those things, and anything is possible. Muhammad Ali used to say, I'm possible.
Right.
It's really the word impossible, but if you separate it, it's I'm possible. Look at that. Look at the potential on that, Karen, and the potential your son has. And look at what your son accomplished. Look at what my sister accomplished. Look at what you accomplished, getting through what you went through. You know, we have to go through that depression and anger and discomfort that we get because now we feel like we're not successful. No, we're given an opportunity to grow and do something else. And you did. You looked at it and went, okay, we need to shift. And we need to do things a little bit differently. And now look at you today. You're bigger and better than being on a TV
Oh,
newscast. You're touching humans on a daily basis and helping them grow themselves.
well,
Super.
it's interesting when you talk about getting used to being uncomfortable. Um, I do drive. I don't like driving, but when you live in the suburbs, you have to drive.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not like New York City. Um, and I have a part-time IT job that I do, and I visit different hospitals. And yesterday was the second time I was going to one of the hospitals, and my GPS took me someplace else. Now, typically in the past, I would get very angry. I'd be yelling at my GPS, and I'd be calling my husband demanding you help me find my way. But yesterday, I just pulled off to the side, read, went through my GPS, and I realized I looked around and I was being very mindful of my surroundings. And I was thinking, I recognize this. If I continue going straight down the road, turn around and come back about a half a mile, I will be where I need to be. And I did that. And when I pulled into the parking lot, I celebrated.
Yes.
I didn't get angry. I wasn't screaming and yelling at the GPS. I didn't have to call my husband and say, hey, help me find this. I was there. And I've been celebrating for the last 24 hours because sometimes we want to make a change, but something inside us says, do the comfortable thing, call and ask for help.
Yeah.
I could get my own help. I did.
That was That's such a growth moment for you. That's amazing. Because yes, what a great example. You could have done the easy thing and called the husband and said, hey, help me out here. And you did the other thing, which is, and I'm trying to let people know this is look up from your shoes. Nobody wants to see the top of your head. When you look up, the answers are in front of you. Trust. You have to trust. Universe, God, source is going to provide you with the answers. You just have to be willing to take the step. You have to take action. You have to take the step. And yes, is it good to ask for help and ask questions? And absolutely, I totally encourage that. But there's difference between reliance and asking so that then you can empower yourself so that you could do it yourself and take your own actions. And that's what you did yesterday. And yeah, so I want you to lift your hand up in the air. I want you to reach over your back and I want you to pat yourself on the back. Good job. Good
You know,
job.
I did that when my husband came home. He walked in the house and I patting myself on the back and he goes, oh, did you make something special for dinner? And I said, no, but I didn't call you when I thought I was lost. And he looked
Yeah.
at me, he goes, and he's always telling me I can do these things. But, I grew up in a household with two older brothers, and it was always implied that the men know it all. Okay. The men have the answers. And so when I would get stuck, but when it happened yesterday, I kept thinking, what would I tell one of my clients? Would I tell them it's okay to sit in the car and just go ballistic? No, I would tell them, take that deep breath. There's an answer out there. You can figure it out. And maybe the answer would have been calling my husband or pulling into the gas station and asking for directions. But I had to figure out what was it that I was going to do. And that's
Yes.
what you do with your clients.
Yes, without a doubt. I help them take the action. I ask them, ask themselves why they're doing what they're doing. Ask them what they want. Not tell them they can't do it. We're able to do anything. Again, our success codes are inside. But I want you to share with everyone. I'm going to flip this on you. I want you to share it with everyone. How does it make you feel? Because you're beaming and smiling like there's no tomorrow
Yep.
because of the pride that you feel. Talk about that feeling, because I know that feeling when I achieve something that I didn't think was within reach. It's not that I didn't think it was possible. It didn't occur. How does that success feel? How does that feel?
I feel 10 feet tall, to be honest. Okay. It's, I felt the growth right away. And, I have some of my clients who say to me, Karen, you're in your 70s. Why are you doing this? Why? Because I'm still alive. I'm still growing.
Why not?
And I have the opportunity to do it. I have the opportunity to look at all those years when I thought I couldn't do certain things. Graduating high school, I wanted to get into broadcasting. My parents weren't going to go along with it. But every job I had, I did some sort of public speaking. It was still in me. Right before my mother passed away, I was staying with her up in Michigan and I was running my podcast from her apartment. And I said to her one day, Mom, I'm going in the other room. One of your caregivers will be here. I'm going to go do a podcast. And she grabbed my hand and she said, are you a famous radio personality? And I said, I'm the most famous person in this house.
Nice.
And when I got onto my podcast, I was just like, I was beaming
Yeah.
because if we don't think of ourselves that way, our audience won't, nobody else will, and we come across differently. And
Yeah.
that's why when I achieved this yesterday, I wrote to a number of my clients and I said, I'm just like you. I could fall into that bad pattern, but I chose, wait a second, what can I do?
Yeah.
And you can do it.
You can do anything. And my mom always said that. My dad always said that. You can do anything. You can be anything. And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But the truth is we can, if it resonates with you, and we're here for a purpose. We just need to find where that sweet spot is, where that loss of time happens. I know when I'm coaching, I lose time. I actually have to put an alarm on because I go for hours I love being with my clients and I love watching them get their aha moments. But understand that, it's both of our experiences in the past, all those tools we collected over the years for the various jobs. Every time I got another job, I look back And I went, oh my gosh, all the things I learned in my last job and the jobs before are helping me in this job, and so forth and so on as I went along. Now, everything in my life, all of my life experiences, good, bad, and ugly, help me today resonate and serve my former self, which are the people that I serve. It's like, oh yeah, I get you. I understand. I've been through that. I've had $1 between me and my husband, for the week to spend on food, right? I know what that's like. I have that dollar hanging on my bulletin board in my office to remind me and humble me of where I went, where I was, and where I am now. It reminds me, it keeps me in my space so that I can serve other people, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to learn. And how do we learn? We learn from failure. We don't learn from success, right? So all I'm going to ask you to do is take that word that our society has made into a bad word and say it's not a bad word anymore. It's an opportunity. Failure is an opportunity. I'm going to ask you to take that I, put a little foot on it, and make it fall, not fail, but fall, because we're going to fall forward. We're going to learn from it. Now, when we aren't successful, it's when we take those fall and it's the same one over and over again. It's like Groundhog's Day. That means we're not having a learning curve. So we need to take a different look at it. I need you to change your lens and look at it a different way. How can I change the outcome? When something bad happens, what you consider bad happens to you, I want you to change your lens. You can get emotional if you want. That's fine. That's a normal reaction. But then I want you to change your lens and ask yourself a question. What am I supposed to learn from this? What is it that I'm supposed to learn from this negative situation, right? What am I supposed to learn? Just as much as we need to celebrate our successes every week. Every Friday morning at 9 a.m., I sit in my little office by myself and I celebrate my little wins. They all can't be big, but little steps, lots and lots of little steps will get us our big wins. So I celebrate those little steps and celebrate what I've done, because if I don't look at those wins and celebrate myself, who's going to? And that elevates our vibration. So when I go turn around to do the second thing we're here to do, which is serve other people, and that could be in a I don't mean serve like here's a cup of coffee, although some people do that for a living, and that's beautiful. My son is in hospitality. But I mean serve, whatever it is we do. If we teach, if we paint, if we're a carpenter, if we're whatever, if we're a doctor, that's how we serve other people. We're taking our expertise and helping them with it. It's not their superpower, right? So those are the two things we're supposed to do. We're supposed to learn and we're supposed to serve each other. And when we do that, life is beautiful. That's why you and I are always smiling, because we love what we do. We're no longer in that unhappy place. Listen, when I left that job, I had colitis, I had IBS, I had diverticulitis, all these really stress related. I was killing myself. It wasn't anybody else. I take full responsibility. I was killing myself and allowing it to happen. Those are words that a lot of people don't say, but I take 100% responsibility for what I do in my life. And when I started doing that, and we can start with taking 5% more daily, but when I started doing that, everything changed, because then I started to make different decisions. And that, my book, Women Who Dream, my chapter in that book is called Two Choices. There are only two choices in everything we do. Do it, don't do it. Start it, don't start it. Be stuck, be unstuck. And it's okay. Whatever your choice is the correct one at the time. But there comes a time, and I know for me, I was stuck for a while. I was stuck for about 7 years. And I finally decided I'm bored. I don't want to do this anymore. I need to change. It's like Groundhog Day year after year. Every January came around and I was in the same place. Nothing had changed. Well, nothing had changed in me. I hadn't made any changes in myself. I hadn't taken any action to change anything. So why would it change, right? So I started making plans and I started making goals, and then I came from stuck to unstuck. And I have been loving life and dreaming life and living the life I have wanted, and continue to do so every single day since, because I made that choice, and it's a choice. We need this. I went to law school because I wanted to think like a lawyer, because somehow they have this ability to push all the emotional stuff aside and they see what's called the issue, right? I love the way they think. So I wanted to learn how to think like that, because that was really yummy. And it really comes in handy as a coach too. But so by learning how to think like that, you look at it and you push all those emotions aside. That's what we need to do. Just look at it. We have two choices, go or stay. Either I'm going to leave this situation and leave this work, not worrying about the how, or I'm going to stay and what's going to change. So we need to start asking ourselves those questions and go inside. We're taught to go outside. And I don't know why. Do you know why, Karen, we're taught to do that?
I don't know, but all I do know is that when we're feeling at our lowest, at least for me, when I'm at my lowest, is when I start climbing and really climbing. It's like, I don't want to be here. And then when I look back, I realized that really wasn't as low as I thought it was.
Oh,
Because
but it feels
look
yucky.
where I am now.
Yeah.
And, for years, raising my son, I would say to him, I know you've got challenges, but look at all these other opportunities you have as well. So, yeah, today you can sit and you can moan about your challenges, but tomorrow you need to see what you can do with them. And he would look at me on day one and say, Mom, you're crazy, not going to happen. And by day two, it was like, Mom, look what I can do. And now it's just not noticeable. I just see his growth. With his growth, there's my growth. And when you talked about I'm possible, when he was diagnosed, I started a blog called I'm Possible.
Oh,
I knew that I had to be possible for him. No
well,
matter
look at going
where
back.
he was.
Yeah, going back to that Harvard story. You kept the possibility in front of him. Challenges are just opportunities not taken yet.
Right.
Not yet taken. Challenges are just opportunities not yet taken. So that you kept those possibilities in, everything is possible. There is nothing off the table. Everything is possible. So, but let me be very clear. You don't become an overnight success. There really isn't anything such thing as an overnight success. There's an overnight 20-year success. There's that, but we do have to take action. We still have to take steps. We can't say, this is what I want and sit back and go, make it happen.
Yep.
That doesn't happen. So I want to be really, really clear about that. I'm not, blowing smoke or making fake dreams. We do have to take action. That's why I'm a take action success coach and a strategist, because we have to strategize. What do we have to do in order to get you there? And I liken it to eating a pizza. So the pizza is my big dream, but I don't do it in one bite, do I? We don't eat a pizza in one bite. We slice it into slices. We cut it into slices and then we take bites. So let's look at that big dream. We're going to take that big dream and we're going to break it into actionable plans, right? And then we're going to take that and blow it up into little steps we're going to take. And I will challenge each one of you, yourself included, Karen, that if we just take one action every day towards our goal, just one action, the rest of the day you can play. The rest of the day you can do anything you want. But I need you to take one action, be it big or small, but take one step towards your goal. You have 356 in a year. Where do you think you'll be by the end of the year? You'll be farther than I was during those 7 years that I took no action.
But even with the action you weren't taking, it was brewing.
Well,
It had to have been.
I had to be in those 7 years of stuckness. I had to feel what I was feeling in order to serve the people that I do today. I had to understand how that felt and what I was doing. And I wasn't not taking action. I was just taking different things. I was learning different modalities. Those modalities serve me now. I was learning how to meditate. I became a Kundalini meditative practitioner, right? I was getting certified an herbalist. I was getting certified as an aromatherapist. So I really was taking action, but it didn't look like it because it looked like I was doing all me stuff, but that's how I was growing me. So I really was taking action in those, but I wasn't unstuck because I was still doing that same job and I wasn't happy there. But all these other things were making me happy. I was learning about astrology. I was learning about anything I could possibly learn about as a distraction, but it really wasn't. I needed to learn these. I was exactly where I was supposed to be at the exact time. I was learning exactly what I was supposed to learn at the exact time. I was meeting the exact people that, by the way, are in my life now. because of where I was going. And those people helped me serve my clients as well. And I know you're shaking your head fervently because you know
Oh,
what I'm talking about. So
absolutely.
everything, even if it seems hopeless, we're exactly where we're supposed to be. We just have to ask different questions. And the different question is, what am I supposed to learn from this? What's the next step? Just take baby steps. So often we're looking 10 years down the line, and we should be looking at the next minute, at the next moment. The officers, the SEALs that went in and did some extraordinary things on behalf of the United States. Those SEALs look at every minute. They don't look at the hour down the road. They don't look at the end of the day. They look at, what am I doing right now? Because that's all that matters. And that goes back to being present. What happened, happened. What's going to happen is going to happen. So be present in what you're doing and who you're with. I lost so many years with people, with really being with them in the room and being. That's why we're called human beings. We're not human runners. We're human beings because we're supposed to be. And one more challenge I'm going to ask you to add to the one action you're going to take every day is learning the pause, learning to take the pause. Doesn't mean you're lazy if you're not moving. Doesn't mean you're not doing and you're not being if you're not running, 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 running. I'm a New Yorker. I talk fast, I move fast, everything I do is fast. That's what we do. Blah, 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 blah. I don't want to do that anymore. And I've stopped doing that for the last few years. And I pause. I pause before my clients. I pause after my clients. I clear the way to open my mind and my soul and everything so that I can let whatever else is coming in. And that's when the good, yummy stuff comes in and you're like, oh, I didn't notice that, So pick up your head, lift your head up, look up. Nobody wants to see the top of your head. They want to see your eyes. Make eye connection with other people, and you're going to see the yumminess in the world from a different lens.
I love it. I am so glad we had you on, Lorianne. Um, I am full of energy and I'm not sure what to do with it right now, but I'm going to think about it in between now and my next show. I will tell you one of the things that I did learn in the past year. I was doing shows back to back, and I kept saying I love doing it, but at the end of the day, I was exhausted and I couldn't remember who I really spoke to at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you that one of my coaches through Podmatch said to me, Karen, stop. Why are you doing so many podcasts? And I said, because I love it. They said, you may love it, but you're ruining it for yourself.
Yeah.
Take the time in between. And, I'm booking so far out in advance. And I've had people say to me, well, why are you booking 6 months in advance? Because I'm not doing them back to back anymore.
Because you can.
Well, because I can, but because I'm appreciating what I'm doing now, really appreciating it. Whereas
Yeah.
before I was enjoying it, I'm enjoying it, but I appreciate it and I'm learning.
Yes. And so that energy of appreciation comes through what we do. That vibrates us higher. And that the nonverbal is so much stronger than our verbal. Our
Right.
verbal is messed up anyway. Our language is wild, right? So we can get into another whole conversation about that. But the nonverbal is a lot more, a lot stronger. There are times you walk in and you're like, you hear what they're saying, but you're not feeling it.
Yep.
It's because their nonverbal is truthful. So when you're experiencing it, you're being present, you're giving yourself time to absorb it. It's like reading a book. Then give yourself space, apply whatever it is you took from the book, even if it's just one sentence. Just apply it, just live in it, saturate yourself in it, and then move on. And that's what we're doing. We're rushing by. We're like the train, and we're not enjoying the sights that we can see outside the train. So slow the car down, slow yourself down. And I love that you're doing it more intentionally. I want us to think of everything that we're doing, do it with intention. And when you do, you're going to enjoy it even more. you learn, you expand, and then you can help bring that forward to other people even more than you already do. Karen, I am so grateful for the opportunity to be on the show with you. I'm so grateful, and hopefully I earn the privilege of your time, your listeners' time. You know, I'm just so thrilled to be here. So thank you so much for having me on today.
Well, thank you. We'll have all your links in the show notes. So anybody who wants to follow Lorianne, please do. Um, you know, coaches support other coaches, and Lorianne does things that I don't even touch on. And I think that's important for people to know. I'm working with 3 coaches and they all help me in different ways.
I got 5.
Got
So
5.
I get it, girl. And here's another thing. If you're working with a coach, make sure they have a coach, at least one, because coaches without a coach are uncoachable. So therefore, they're not going to really bring you as much value. There's reasons why Karen and I have coaches, is because we want to continue to learn ourselves and bring to you things that you may not see. And the more we expose ourselves to other coaches, and I've studied with the great masters of our field. I've been very fortunate to study with Tony Robbins, Mary Morrissey. Jack Canfield is I love him. I'm certified by Jack. I'm a Canfield trainer for him. By learning from all of these great coaches, it allows us to bring to you what you may not be able to afford, and also allows us to bring different tools to you. Some people don't resonate with the Tony Robbins method. Some people resonate better with the Jack Canfield. Some people resonate better with Joe Dispenza. It just depends, the Grant Cardones of the world. We can bring that to you because we do the education, we spend the money to do that, but then we bring it to you in a different way. And you need to have a coach who has a coach. And there are a lot of people who call themselves coaches out there. Just check on that. That's the first checks that you should stop at before you work with a coach.
Again, thank you so much. Have a great day, and stay warm in New York.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Karen.